Hi, Emma.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great today. I'm super excited to introduce our audience to Laura Ingalls Wilder and her daughter, Rose Wilder Lane, to join us here with Emma and my son Adam, who transitioned at age 27 almost 7 years ago in January. He started talking to me while he was still on life support, and he's been talking to me ever since. So today, Adam is here, Emma is here, and we have asked Rose and Laura to join us as a special gift to our subscriber, Christina Lopez. She was our 1,000th subscriber, and this is who she chose as the guest that she would most like to visit with. So welcome, Laura and Rose.
They're saying thank you for having us. And Adam just wants to say, hey guys, I love you. He's just jumping around.
We love you too, Adam.
He's saying, I love you so much, Mama. You know that.
I do.
He's saying, I have two beautiful women here with me who have made a difference in people's lives.
They sure have.
He's just saying, the books had a great impact on people.
They did.
And then when the show was made, people would, they would dream of those days and the times and the Western times and all of that. So he's saying it made a big difference in people's lives. And the beautiful thing about it was that a lot of those stories were autobiographies?
Autobiographical. Yes.
Right. So,
yeah, it was about their life.
It was about her life, So I have a lot of admiration for her, he says, because she was very strong and very tough.
She really was. When I connected with their energy this morning, it was like I just called them in. I'm like, show me how you feel, ladies. Oh my God, I felt like a man. And I don't mean I felt masculine. I felt as self-sufficient and self-reliant as any man. If there was something that needed doing, you just do it. I mean, that was the energy I picked up on. Just like that, is like, these women are go-getters. They make things happen. They can take care of business.
Exactly. And Adam is saying, that's what kept them alive. That's what kept them going. They were very strong-minded. Mm-hmm. Was in those days, you had to be careful with that as a woman.
Sure.
But she also had a lot of stamina. She had a lot of willpower to make something out of life and to see the beauty, to continuously see beauty in what was around her. And I think, Mom, if we all would live life that way and just see the beauty that's there, we would live we would be a lot stronger, and we would live a lot happier lives as well. So I think she's incredible. But he says, I'm going to let her do the talking now.
Thank you for your assessment of this amazing lady, Adam. Okay, Miss Laura, let's hear from you.
Well, she says, thank you for having me, Cindy. She says, I'm not sure if there were specific questions, but I guess I could tell you a little bit of a story of a little girl who she says, who would move from place to place to place to place. She's saying we traveled a lot. They were always very difficult journeys. There was a considerable amount of danger. And I have to say that when it comes to the books, we did adjust a lot of things, okay? They are not 100% the way things were or the way things went. And I have to also say that a lot of the characters were fictional or were a kind of a combination of different people that we put into one. I have to also, this is, not a lot of people might know this, But writing these books were really not my idea.
Really?
They were my daughter's idea.
Well, Rose was a writer, so that makes sense.
I had written a diary.
Uh-huh.
I keep a diary for years and years and years. And I always told the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she loved them. And Rose was at a time where she wasn't sure. She loved writing and she was doing some jobs here and there, but there wasn't anything steady for her. There wasn't anything that she could really put all of her energy into. They were just temporarily things here and there, here and there, and she didn't like the way that she kind of had to always adjust to other people's opinions about what she was writing.
Uh-huh.
Rose is very much like me,
Uh-huh.
very strong-minded, very stubborn, but, goal-oriented.
Yes.
And so she asked me if it was okay to write kind of like a biography about my journeys, about my life, about all the trips that we did and what happened to Ma and Pa and the brothers and the sisters. And she's just making me feel like it was a big family. I don't quite remember the show, but she's just showing me a family. And so she started writing it, and I thought it was really good, but it was turned down. They didn't like it. There was so much criticism, and there still is. Even now, writers are constantly criticized. It's never good enough. So it's really hard to have your work published. It was back then,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
but now just the same. It's still hard for anybody who's trying to publish something.
To have a publisher pick up your work, yes.
Right. And so Rose adjusted it because they wanted it. They liked the stories, but they didn't want the realism of it. They didn't want it to be a biography, and so she turned it more into a children's book, more into young adult kind of books. And so she adjusted things, and unfortunately, we had to move some things around. We had to move the order around of how things worked. We had to readjust certain characters. We had to introduce certain characters to make everything more fluent, more more so people could relate to the characters.
Sure. But they were based on fact.
They were based on a lot of facts.
Yeah.
A lot of things that happened in the books happened in real life.
Right.
But a lot of things were adjusted as well. But, I think and I believe that it also kind of made a picture of what it was like.
It
did. How we would travel from one place to the next, because there was always something popping up that wasn't right. We never really seemed to have a lot of luck, and it was extremely, we had hard lives, and I think looking at the show, it was very romanticized, and it was very, it was put in a very positive, family-oriented kind of light, which was nice. It's nice to see the positive of it. But in real life, I have to say that Ma and Pa didn't get along as well as they show in the show. There was a lot of arguing. There was a lot of fighting.
Now, are you referring to your parents, Laura, or to you and Almanzo?
My parents.
Okay.
I'm referring to my parents.
Okay.
She's saying that Pa always had great ideas. He wanted to provide for the family. He wanted, to make something out of himself. But Ma didn't like the fact that we constantly had to move around, start over, move through this, start over. She hated it. She hated the traveling. I loved the traveling, because I loved fresh starts. I loved new beginnings. It was one of my things. I always had this view of life that every time I got on that wagon, every time I went to a new location, I could reinvent myself.
Yes.
Back from the beginning, start all over. Everything's erased. Start fresh. That's how I see it. However, my mother didn't see it that way. She wanted to settle down. She wanted to build things. She wanted to establish something, some stability, and so for her, she really had a hard time with the moving around, with always having to start over. She just didn't see progress. All she saw was, we get somewhere, we take 2 steps back. We got somewhere, we took 2 steps back. And that really affected her mood. That really affected her vision of life. There was a lot of disappointment in her heart. And of course I couldn't show that in the book, and I couldn't show, you want to keep it family friendly.
Well, you do. And if you had put it in the book, the publishers would have made you take it out. I mean, that was what that was all about, making the story pretty enough for people to want to read it.
She's saying exactly. So a lot of things were kept out of the book, or the books. She's showing me books. There's several books. I've never read any of them, but I don't even know they have them over here. I would have to look. I'm pretty sure they do, but I've never read them. And so she's saying, yeah, my mother went through depression. My mother she cried a lot. She cried. And I would have to say that sometimes she would even, she would work it out on us. She would get upset with us very fast. She was just touchy. You have to make sure that everything was right, because, she was already so sensitive.
She had a hard life, and she did not have your sense of adventure.
Right, she did not, and she just wanted stability, and she just wanted something to build on. So the stress and the aggravation that she had, and she did sometimes, she would project it out to the family members, but deep in my heart, I knew that it was just disappointment, and it was just a sense of I guess not accomplishing the goals that she wanted to accomplish in her life.
That makes sense.
I never took, I never got angry with her. I was very different than her. I was more like my dad. I was more adventurous. And my dad always wanted to believe in the best outcome. He always had this attitude that, all we can do is try, and then we'll see what happens. He kind of had that attitude. My mother wanted to control things because she wanted to have the perfect outcome, so that kind of collided at times. But, I wouldn't have wanted any other parents, because they made me strong. And I adopted a lot of qualities from both of them. I had my sense of adventure, and I had my kind of, we'll see what happens kind of attitude from my dad. But I also had the strength and the willpower, because my mom would work very hard to work and to help in building things in the farms and keeping everyone healthy, which was another kind of issue. There was a lot of illness while we were traveling around, and then my sister, let me tell you my relationship with my sister, she says.
Okay.
Okay, so she's talking about the sister who went blind.
Mary.
Right. Um, she was older than she was, she says.
Older
Uh,
than Laura.
right. And and she's saying, I think a lot of people might have experienced this in their lifetime if you have an older sister. But my sister was very beautiful. She had blue eyes, blonde hair. She was gorgeous,
Oh.
and I was just, I didn't see myself as pretty.
Uh-huh.
And I have to admit, I was always a little jealous of her. I always kind of felt, like she was Mama's favorite too. She was the firstborn, and she was Mama's favorite. And um, so I kind of felt a little bit of jealousy. I felt like, Mama liked her a little bit more than she liked me. Of course, I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case, but that was just something that I created for myself.
It's a sibling rivalry thing.
It's a sibling rivalry thing. So I really I was envious of her and of her beauty, and she was so smart, and she was so clever, and she knew what to do. Half of the time I was just kind of parading around everywhere, not knowing what I was doing. But she was responsible. She was pretty. She was smart. She had everything. And so when she went blind, I thought for a very long time that my jealousy had brought that upon her.
Oh my.
I claimed to myself for a very long time that I was the cause of her blindness. Um,
What
I
a
learned
terrible
that.
burden for a child.
I know, but it was just something that I had created in my mind. Of course, it wasn't that.
No.
But I thought that God had punished me, and
Oh.
I had put that upon her because of my jealousy, because of my enviness.
Oh.
Don't forget we were very religious, and that was
Right.
the sins. You had the sins, and so she's saying I thought that was a punishment, and I did that to my sister. Um, and so I thought that God wanted to make her look less pretty so I would feel better because he took away her sight, so she kind of became less attractive, in some way or form, not physically, but you know what I'm saying,
I understand. Yeah.
right? And I thought that God had done that because so I would feel better. So that's why I felt responsible um, for that. And it took me a very, very long time to actually release that. And in looking back at my life, I don't think I fully ever released that kind of guilt feeling that I had towards her. And there were, as we grew older, um, she's making me feel like the siblings kind of lost contact with one another. Um, I don't know how it went in the shows, but what she's showing me is that it's like Mary, she hadn't seen her for like 20 years at one point before they came back together again. So there were long periods of time as they grew older and their parents died where they didn't see each other anymore.
Okay.
Uh, and so that is something she does regret, is that they kind of lost that family connection that they had when they were a child. Over time, she says you have to understand we didn't have internet. We didn't have,
No.
there wasn't. It was very hard. So when people got married, um, one went that direction, the other one went that direction, that one went this direction, and so by the time we actually got to come together, years had passed,
Many
and we
years have
almost didn't
passed.
recognize one another anymore. And I remember when I saw Mary again, it felt like she changed. Like I didn't even recognize my sister anymore. So um, that is something I do regret in life, is that um, we did all kind of go in our own way eventually, and we kind of lost that bonding. that family connection. We didn't decide to all stick together and do
Mm-hmm.
something, you know, as a family, but we all kind of went in our own ways. So I have to admit that that for me was um, painful. It
Well,
was.
what about your sister Carrie? What was your relationship like with Carrie?
Um, when it came to Carrie, she was just, I loved her. I adored her. But there was no competition like there was with Mary. She showed me Carrie was younger, is what she
Okay.
showed. Um, I felt very protective over her,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And she's saying this might make people laugh or make people go, what? But in some way or form, she was almost like a puppy. And I would just feed her and take care of her and dress her when she was really little. So um, she's just making me feel like she kind of became her mom in some way or form. She was very motherly over her.
Over
So
Carrie.
she's also making me feel like she was sick a lot. Like
Carrie was sick?
her health wasn't 100%. So she did worry a lot about her. She did worry a lot.
What are your
Uh,
best memories with Carrie?
she's saying, see, but you keep stop calling her Carrie. She calls her Caroline.
That was her name.
Okay.
The mother's name was Caroline,
That,
and I believe
um,
little sister was
okay.
also Caroline.
Okay.
So
I get
you
it.
actually called your sister Caroline, not Carrie. They called her Carrie in the TV show, but you called her Caroline?
I call her Caroline. If she didn't listen, I'd call her Carrie.
Okay.
um, but yeah, so it was. She did have. They did use Carrie, she says, but it was just to avoid confusion.
Between
Um,
her and Mama?
yeah, her and Ma. She just calls her Ma.
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 Ma. Well, that is what she called her. Ma and Pa.
Right.
Where if
So,
that's true, I mean that is what they called them in the books and on the TV show.
right, right. Now, hold on. I'm there. She's showing me a picture in my head. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. She had a pretty big family. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. I think I see 5. Um, there was a boy there
Okay.
saying that Mama lost him. Okay, Mama lost him when he was. I think he was a stillborner. He died when he was very young. Just showing me a little baby, and she's showing me how they're grieving over, or how her mama. It's like Mama grieved over him very, like intensely. It was very hard for
Yeah.
her to lose the boy because she's making me feel like he was the only boy she had.
Yeah, I'm seeing here Christina Lopez provided me with some information.
Oh,
She knows a lot about Laura Ingalls Wilder. She said you're correct. There was 4 girls and 1 boy, Charles Frederick Ingalls, who died at almost 10 months old.
okay,
So she
okay.
had him long enough to be very bonded to him. 10 months is a long time. When you think about how much you love a 10-month-old, especially the
Right,
first
I
boy
know.
after all the girls.
Yeah, and it feels like she's making me she's showing you her mom crying. I think this affected her mother for a very long time. You know, like I don't think she ever actually overcame that loss.
Yeah.
It was always part of the family. It was always part of kind of the sadness that she had inside of her.
Yeah.
So she's saying that I could sometimes see Mama cry on her own when she was holding like a little, I don't know, it's not like a piece of cloth or clothing.
Just something that belonged to the baby.
Right, I think so. And she's showing me, she's very visual right now. She's showing me a picture of her mom kind of going like this, rocking herself,
How sad.
So yeah, so she would see that, and she says it really hurt, like it made her feel sad. But she says I didn't know what to do or say to take away the pain.
Right.
So, that kind of made her a little sad because she didn't know how to help her own mom
Oh,
when it
sure.
came to that. So she says I was very strong, but I was very sensitive inside. I was
Yeah.
very sensitive to energies, and when my mama was sad or she was upset, it felt like a wave coming over me, and I was just absorbing all of that energy. So yeah, sometimes I felt really helpless. Sometimes I felt really helpless. Um,
Which of your siblings were you closest to?
I would probably say Mary and Carrie. Um, Grace was Grace is great. She says whatever that means. Grace was great.
Okay.
I think she loved all of her siblings, but I think she worried the most about Mary because of her blindness, is what it feels like.
Now, was
And
that caused by diabetes?
um, she says, well, at that moment, we don't know what caused it. Um, she's shaking her head. Yes, they know now that that was the case. Um,
But
but
they
she
did
said,
not.
no, for 2 days we didn't. There was nothing that led up to it. So it just started. It didn't happen suddenly. It wasn't like she woke up and it was boom. It went gradually. Her vision started getting worse and worse.
Right.
So she's saying yes to that.
Okay.
Did not know at that time.
They didn't
There
know
was
at the time.
no, yeah, they had no idea. The doctor couldn't give an explanation. Um, so, and then she says that Carrie also had a lot of health issues. She was very weak. Had a very weak immune system, she says, and she got sick a lot. What she's showing me is that there was I'm not really sure what that is that she's showing me. It's almost like her body was attacking itself.
An
Like
autoimmune disorder?
of some sort. And she would get sick a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But she's saying, you know what though? I was very proud of her because although she was very weak as a child, she actually grew up to be a very strong woman.
That's
And
wonderful.
it's almost like she grew out of it, or whatever was going on with her body, she got it under control. And she actually had, she lived a pretty normal life. When it came to having children of her own, I guess they weren't like their mama. They didn't have a lot of children, is what they're showing me. She's even showing me a sister who adopted two children of the man that she married, but she never had children of her own. Um, she says Carrie never had children of her own, but she adopted two children of the man that she loved.
So that was Carrie. Okay. So Laura, tell us about the long winter. The winter from 1880 to 1881 that lasted 7 months.
Let's just say that was a really hard time. We almost starved to death.
Right.
We had a ration and we had to keep each other warm. We would all snug together. Everybody would, lay next to one another. And it's kind of, let's just say that you lose hope real fast. Because it's not like today you look outside and you have your neighbor.
Right.
Are isolated.
Yes, you're isolated.
Months and months, and there is nothing you can do. You're bored out of your mind, and the only thing I could do was just write stuff down. That's basically what I did.
Oh my gosh.
It's just, it was, for me, it was agony, because I was a very active person. And I was a person who loved to go and explore and do things. And, I couldn't sit still very well. I was very active. And all I needed to do was always the same thing over and over and over again, just help with the things in the house. And it was, for me, it was hell. For my parents, it was hell, because they weren't sure how much longer we could survive. I didn't really worry about that. Was really my concern.
As a child, yes.
Right.
See the big picture and the potential consequences.
You're hungry, and
Yes.
and there's not much to eat, and there's you understand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really that's not where the biggest focus goes on to when you're a child.
Right.
The biggest focus for me was being stuck.
Right. How you spent your days.
Right. That was for me the hardest part. And keeping myself busy, was not an easy job.
I'm sure it wasn't as a child. Not at all. So
it was just, they're long, long days, and you don't really. She's showing me that they did have to go outside, which was hard, she says, because they didn't really have, the proper attire for it.
Right. You couldn't keep yourself warm against the winter.
Right. And so she's showing me how her mom would teach her how to make her own dresses. She would recycle things.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Her mom was good at recycling, she says. They would make new dresses out of old dresses and so on. They would constantly switch clothes and just make it into something else. But yeah, she's I'm asking her why they had to go outside. But they're saying we had to go pee.
Right, the bathroom was outside. That's where the privy was.
So she's showing me, it's kind of like a little outhouse with a hole.
My. You'd think it would freeze.
It's been cold. She's also showing me getting ice, getting snow inside for drinking.
Right.
They did have animals, is what she's showing me, and some of them actually froze to death. So for her, that was very hard. She loved the animals. She adored them. They were her babies. She'd play with them. And so that was very hard for her to see. But they tried their best, to keep them warm and to keep them fed. But again, not enough hay. not enough food for them. Some of them starved to death as well. Um, she's saying, the only thing, um, the thing that my dad would do was these animals were frozen. After they passed away, they were frozen, which was a good thing because the meat preserved, and we did have later on some meat to eat. Mm-hmm. But she just says that it was months and months of hell trying to get through this, trying to survive, and to this day it's still a miracle that we survived for that long, because
7 months
you couldn't go to a store. You couldn't just take off and say, I'm going to go shopping, I'll see you later, I'll put the heater on in the car. It just didn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And we did have what you call like a store or a grocery store, not like you do now, but she's saying that was like, it took you a while to get there, so by then you would have frozen to death. So It really, we had to solely survive off of what we had. And to this day, I still don't know how my mom and dad did it, but they did it. They did it.
That's amazing. So
and I admire them for that.
How did you celebrate the holidays as a child in the Ingalls family? Tell me about your Thanksgivings and your Christmases. Not what was in the book. Tell us the real deal. How was it really?
She's saying gifts around Christmas. Gifts were exchanged, but a lot of times they were recycled gifts.
Sure, absolutely. You got to use what you have.
You had to use what you had back then. You weren't allowed to be picky. You just had to be grateful for what you received. Did we do a special meal? Yes. And she's saying, was the meal exactly special? No, not really. But Mom would make pie.
Oh, okay.
And it was the pie that was the special part.
Okay.
Because food-wise, most of all, it was pretty basic. Mm-hmm. But having delicious sweets and pies, now that, you didn't get every day.
That made the holiday.
That made the holidays. But I have to say that we did try to make it into something, very family oriented. It was all about being together. It was about saying grace. It was about being grateful for who we have around us and what we have, despite the struggles, despite, the kind of depressing vibes that sometimes we felt. It was really about, at least for my family, it was about being grateful.
Right.
Yeah. It's almost like, a year's passed. Woohoo, we're still here.
We survived another year.
Five. She's saying you have to understand that in my days, the way that people saw life was different. We really focused more on surviving than we did on contemplating life. See, now people are so deep and they want to understand life, and they don't even see what they have. They don't.
That's true.
See it. It's right there.
I know.
And they don't appreciate it. They don't see it. They think they have nothing, but they have everything. Where I come from, it was about pure survival.
Sure.
And kind of going with the flow. Everything was in the now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And Dad and Pa would think about, okay, where are we going next? But mostly we lived in the now. It was about today.
About survival.
One day at a time.
Yes.
And we made the best of that day. We didn't have the luxury to wander and ponder and complain about stuff that we don't have.
Right.
Hey, you need to survive. You need to do your job, because we each got work to do. We all had to work. We all had to pitch in. This wasn't just go play all day on your video game and have fun. This was hard labor.
Absolutely.
And we all had our specific jobs. And we sometimes did it together, especially me and Carrie. And we did it together. But yeah, it was still about, no matter how hard it was, no matter how unluxurious it was, because there was no luxury.
Right.
I mean, there was a point in our lives we lived in a hole in the ground.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't always have a home. Okay? There was a point in our lives where we lived in a hole where they put a roof over. They basically dug a hole in the ground, put a roof over it, and that's where we lived, So there was no luxury. There was no, it was being grateful for being alive when you woke up in the morning.
Right.
That's kind of the attitude that we had.
That is a far cry from now. I mean, these days we think that it's the end of the world if our iPhone doesn't work or it breaks.
Or the internet doesn't work or this doesn't work. But, simplicity, people, that's where beauty is. That's where happiness is. And we didn't have much.
Nope.
We had each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, we made the best out of every day. And I always saw beauty in things around me, in the flowers, in the grass, in the little animals that were there. There's always beauty to be found. And I think nowadays people need to learn to stop and look, because there's beauty everywhere around you. We're so focused now on having stuff.
Right.
And being famous and, proving yourself. Look at me, I can do more than you. And look at me, I'm better at this and I'm better at that. There's so much focus on overpowering everyone else. I think, I might not be using the right word, but she's showing me, that we always want to be bigger than the other person. So it's like, see, look at me, I'm better.
So we're competing rather than living our own path.
Right. We're too competitive
Right.
with one another. We think and we believe now that in order for us to be happy, we also need to be the best at something, and we need to have the biggest career, and we need to be successful in this, and successful as a mother, successful as a housewife, successful as this. We need to have success in everything in order to feel happiness. But we don't. All you need to do is be present in your human existence.
And be grateful.
Grateful and appreciative for what is already there. And if you can find appreciation and gratitude for what God has already provided for you, then all your desires will be attracted to you. Because you will be in a constant state of abundance. Because look around, people, you have so much. You have so much.
That's amazing.
Be grateful, she says. Be grateful for what you have.
What a beautiful message. Thank you very much, Laura. And I mean, and the messages in your books, even if they weren't 100% factual, they're based on things that happened, and the composite characters were based on real people and real events that happened, and they basically gave a true picture of what it was like to live in those days, and about, the character building and fortitude and survival.
Right. And the only thing that I regret a little bit is that, but you have to see it from our perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When we grew up, we were surrounded by Native Americans.
Right.
And there was a lot of still friction.
A lot of tension, yes.
Right, a lot of tension, and there was a lot of insecurity. We didn't know them. They didn't really know us. Mm-hmm. But, sometimes we did have encounters with these people. And it is how would you say it? not really taking the time to get to know one another, that would
Mm-hmm.
cause, in my from my perspective, kind of a different the wrong view. For instance, I would
Yes.
write about, and I wrote that in my diaries. They would chant, and for me that was very threatening. That felt very, oh my God, they're going to do something, because you kind of grow up with these stories as a
Yeah.
child, and so they create this negativity around these people. But the people who were around us really weren't bad people. They were
Right.
really good people. We just didn't
Didn't
comprehend
know
each other,
it.
didn't know one another. But because of the stories, when I heard the chanting, it really terrified me, and I did
Sure.
express that in the book. But really, they were probably, she says, they were just doing their thing. They
They
were just
were.
trying
They were. And they were probably
to, yeah,
just as much afraid of you. And the funny thing is, that is really how it is now. People that we are afraid of, if we would just stop being afraid of each other and understand each other, we're all alike.
exactly. I think people need to understand that there is no difference
There
between us.
isn't.
We all want to be happy. We all want to share this world and experience this
Sure.
journey. And um, that's the thing. We already make up our minds about people before we even get to sit down with them and have a conversation with them. And unfortunately, for me, and I do apologize, she says, to the tribes that I might have offended with that, but it was the fact that I did not know the truth, and I did not know who they were. And Pa wouldn't allow me to get to know him, although I was very curious. And
I
then
bet you
I
were.
peek up there and look at what
Did
they
you?
were doing. I did. They were just, on the one hand, when they did the chanting, that seemed very terrifying to me because it was very loud and it was very, there was a
Yeah.
very on it.
They're building energy with it, is what they're
Right,
doing.
right. And because of my sensitivity, that kind of felt threatening to
You
me.
felt the big energy, but not what it was about. Sure.
Right, right. And then you start creating something in your mind
To
because you don't
explain it,
understand
sure.
it. Right. But when you looked at them,
Uh huh.
looked vibrant. They
Yeah.
looked shiny. When I looked at them, I could really see that they were glowing. It was like these people were completely different than everyone else that I knew. Everybody else was kind of, and that might have been my sensitivity to energy, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody else was kind of bland when it came to energy. But when they showed up, it was like, oh my God, there was this glow around them. And
They held more light because of their
I,
spirituality and their connection to the earth energies. They just simply held more light. You can
yes,
see it.
she says they were so connected to source and they were
Yes.
so connected to the earth that made them shine.
Mm-hmm.
That energy it filled them up.
Yeah.
And I was always intrigued by that. So I was very curious about him, but I was terrified of him at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I had a little bit of a conflict there. So I would kind of sometimes sneak up and trying to see what they were all doing. But, I would get whooped. My dad would whoop me. He showed me he had a stick and he went, boy, on her butt.
Ow!
Because I wasn't allowed, and they would always catch me. I wasn't a very careful kind of sneaky upper,
Yeah.
but it was worth it. But still, because of the time and everything, and the fear that was kind of put upon me, my dad would tell me, oh, they're gonna hurt you, and you can't do that. So there was constant fear
Sure.
said to me about them. I might have misportrayed them in the books, unfortunately.
Aw.
But
So speaking of the books, in
mhm.
terms of folks saying who is the author of the books, it sounds to me like what you're saying is the books were a joint effort between you and Rose.
Right, I would definitely say it was 50-50.
Is Rose present? Can we have Rose weigh in on? I mean, I'm not investigating who wrote the books because I don't really care.
No, Rose is here, and Rose is saying hello.
Hi, Rose.
No, she's saying, it was, um, let's just say that the idea came from me because I wanted to work on something that I could call, my own, something that I could put all my energy in, that I could create something.
Now that's interesting because you did create it, but then you didn't call it your own. You let your mother take authorship.
Because there was no competition between us.
Right.
These were really my mom's stories, so she deserved the credit for what she's been through. However, I was the one penning it down. I was the one making it into a cohesive story together with her. She would say, no, I don't like this. No, she was critical. My mom could be very critical. She'd be like, no, I don't like that. I don't like this. I don't like that. Let's try this. And sometimes we would bounce off each other and just say, oh, what about this? Can we put this in? And then that will do this and this and this. And sometimes we had ideas and we would put them in. And then later on we were like, that's crap. Let's take it back out. So there was a lot of, in some way or form, she says, I adored it because I got to spend a lot of time with Mama. Mm-hmm. And it was something that we did together. And that was more important to me than getting the fame of the name and getting your name out there and all of that. Really, I just love to write.
You were an accomplished writer and probably had better writing skills than Laura.
Right. I did.
Well, right. I mean, it was her job to live the life, and it was, in terms of, her skills were more the adventurous and the survivor. And as her daughter, you had a way with words and were able to tell the story. You were also very political, very active in the American liberation movement.
Well, let's just say that I got the kind of drive that my mother has to make something from this world, Right. I think my mom, a lot of times her life was about survival.
Sure.
But there was this drive, this will to make a difference in the world, And I think I have that same thing. We all wanted women, and I think we kind of had that feministic little trade. We wanted women to be more empowered,
right,
in the world as well. Mm-hmm. And being able to share a woman's perspective on a lifetime in those days was very rare.
It was
male perspective. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we had to adjust it in order for it to be published, but it was still my mom's journey, And I think for me, that was already a success, a one step forward, that us as women together created something that inspired other women, other, little girls.
Yes.
To be brave, to be adventurous, to do what you want to do, to follow your dreams, to follow your passion. And I'd like to believe that us together created something beautiful for women to, for young women to grow up and be strong. And, I think we inspired, and I know we inspired a lot of young women to become writers, to share their passion, to share their journey with the rest of the world. So in some way or form, I think it did have an impact on the evolution of women and being able to freely express what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and what we went through. Because it was very closed up in the days, or when Mama was a young girl. Women really it didn't matter what you thought, and it didn't matter what you want to do. It's so enclosed and so overpowered by male energy, unfortunately, that I do believe that for us, that was the biggest achievement, that we get to inspire young women to stand up, to fight, to be brave, and to see that no matter what you go through, you can make something out of yourself. So I think that's part of our journey here, or that was part of our journey on Earth.
You are still inspiring girls and women today. So let me ask you, are either you, Laura, or Rose, or Laura currently incarnated on this timeline?
Laura is saying she is, however, not in the form that people would expect her to be.
Okay.
Um,
Would you like to elaborate?
yeah, she is showing me an elephant.
What?
She's an elephant, and in this time frame, she's saying she adores the life because women rule in elephant's life.
This is just amazing to me. It's hard for me to get my head around this. You're an elephant in a matriarchal elephant society. You go, girl.
Right.
You found something big and feminine to be, didn't you?
I wanted the family life.
Oh
I wanted to experience. It is still a kind of life of survival. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of threats out there right now.
So you are not in captivity. You are Where are you? What country?
She's showing me Zambia.
Zambia. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is a life of living with Mother Earth. It is about living with family. Family is very important, she says to us.
And elephants are so intelligent.
Yeah, she's saying, there's and I know some people are going to say, blah, blah, blah. She says, but.
Some people are always going to say blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And she's saying, I never cared then, and I really don't care now.
Okay.
So she's saying that, being in in the animal kingdom is a completely different experience of a physical journey because you are so connected to Source, and you literally feel every energy around you. So it's like you're constantly connected to everything and everyone. And so she says, when you look at animal patterns and you look at how they migrate and you look at how, the changes that these animals, that all animals are going through right now, people think they're the only ones evolving. She says. Animals are evolving too.
Really? Their consciousness?
Yes, they're also going to different dimensions. And so she's saying that you can even ask, biologists that are tracking animals, things are changing, their patterns are changing, their migration routes are changing, a lot of stuff is changing. And that's because we're also evolving to another state of consciousness. And what people don't understand is that what humans do on Earth affects us gravely, affects animals gravely, because that energy that's created by humans, we are so sensitive to that we kind of absorb that, and we have to, in some way or form, realign with our environments constantly, because there's a constant interruption of energies that don't resonate with us, that don't match us. And so we're constantly trying to kind of move around and find areas where, and I'm talking about the wild animals, of course, the animals locked up can't go anywhere.
So you can't transmute the energy, you just move away from it.
We basically move away from it because we don't like the feeling of it. We don't understand it fully. It is, being in the animal kingdom is all about feelings. It's all about the emotional existence. And so whatever we feel, we'll move away from it. It's like an animal or a dog. Let's say there's a dog, and there's a dog in the house, and the owners are fighting. You will
Mm-hmm.
literally see the animal walk away from that. They're not
Yes.
going to go into it. They're not going to run from it, but they're going to move to an area in the house where they cannot feel that energy.
Right.
That's what we do. We'll walk away from it. We're not here to destroy things. We're not here to neutralize the energy, but we will move into a direction where we are away from the energy. And that's why things are changing so much in the animal kingdom as of now as well. And of course, our environment is constantly changing. But I have to say, being an elephant is one of the most fulfilling lives I've ever had because although it is all about survival, it's about teamwork. It's about family. It's about connecting to your environment 100%. And it's about living in a state of beauty. There's constant beauty around us. And people will say, yeah, but you know, lions will eat other animals. Yes, but there is actually, we can feel the contract when that happens, you know. And
Okay.
sense, okay, this is the one that I need in order to survive. This is the one who gives himself for my survival. They can sense the contracts between one another. And that is something
Wow.
that is very hard for humans to comprehend. But on a
Wow.
subconscious level, we get drawn to the one who's supposed to be my dinner that day. Um, so I know that's weird, but
Not
it just
really, because in a way, when I go into my heart space with it, it just makes things make sense.
so yeah. So it's a completely different perspective of an experiencing a physical existence on this planet. And I have to say, and I do recommend it to everyone. Definitely go for it. I'm pretty sure everyone has. She says we
Well,
all.
I am you. You've won me over. I'm up for being an elephant. I think maybe I might have already been because when I try to imagine what you're saying, either I have really strong empathy with this, or I'm just really getting what it's like to be an elephant.
Yeah, you did. She says you weren't an elephant. However, you were a giraffe.
Well, there we go. That explains my kitty ears, folks. The subscriber who said that I had kitty ears from having this behind my head, it was a giraffe.
Right, right. So there
I
you go.
I turned it on its side to get the ears
It
out
was
from behind my head. That is amazing, Laura.
that, that was it was a really peaceful life for you. It was really a peaceful life. Um, this was a while ago. If you look at your time frame, she says, where you guys were still able to roam around without being chased. So it was a really fulfilling life for you.
Thank you, Laura. That's amazing. I love knowing that. Rose, are you here on this timeline or are you still in the in between figuring things out?
She says, as of this time, I am not incarnated. However, I am assisting women and especially young women to follow their hearts. To kind of, I push them to have the courage to continue after being told no a million times.
So, are you
So
talking about writers or in any capacity in which they're
no,
told
not just
no?
writers, in anything that has to do with the creative world.
I love
So
it.
painters, dancers,
Mm-hmm.
there's models. There's a lot of models there with
Mm-hmm.
who really have to go through kind of the judgment. There's constant judgment, especially when it comes to wanting to go into a more creative career.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be constant judgment, and so I help them to believe in themselves. I help them to stay true to their heart and to not give up.
That's wonderful. I have one last question. Are either Mary, Grace, or Carrie on this timeline? Any of your sisters, Laura, are they on this timeline?
Mary is Mary is she's showing me a man. um, Colombia is what she's
In
showing me.
Colombia.
Colombia.
How about
She's
Carrie?
but she's not. She didn't pick an easy life.
Okay.
It is a life of poverty. It is a life of. It feels like she or he, in order to survive, has to do things against his will, unfortunately. So it's not an easy life. And then Grace, it looks like Grace is the only other one who's incarnated at this moment. Oh, she's cute. Grace is a cute little girl. I would probably say about 8 years old. Who lives in Bhutan.
Really?
Where is that? India somewhere?
It sounds like it, but honestly, I can't tell you. So,
My
Carrie is not, though. Are you saying Carrie is not incarnated now?
not in this timeline.
Okay, now, Christina Lopez, our subscriber who wanted this interview, feels a very close connection to Carrie. Can you explain her close connection that she's feeling, or is...
Carrie was a partner of her in another lifetime.
So you're saying that Christina and Carrie were partners in a different lifetime?
Right, and I don't mean romantic partners.
Okay.
It is like I guess, a business partnership that turned into a very close friendship.
Were they males or females?
Male.
Okay. Okay, so she does have a close connection with
She
Carrie.
does have a few, yeah, she has a few incarnations, but she is not her, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Okay.
But they are part of the same soul group, so they do a lot of stuff together.
Well, that explains it. This has been such a lovely visit, ladies.
They're saying, yes, this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Oh, I am delighted. It is truly my pleasure. Do you have any last words for us before we say goodbye to our audience?
They're just saying, believe in yourself and know that you can overcome anything.
Coming from you, I believe it. Thank you very, very much. Goodbye, folks. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you and Gerald, Emma, and to your lovely girls, Leah and Jada.
Same to you. You guys, I think the best advice I can give for holidays and for people who have lost someone, and Adam says, set an extra plate for him.
For Adam?
Yeah. He's saying for people who are going through the holidays and they've lost someone dearly, it can be struggling sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But Adam is saying, know that we're there. Know that we're still part of the family. So set an extra plate for us. Buy us a gift. And then you know what you do? He says, buy us a gift and then give it to somebody who really needs it.
I think that's a great idea, Adam.
So he's saying, open your heart and give the gift of love.
Absolutely. Well, Greg and I are going to bring socks and gloves and hats and warm stuff with our friends and serve breakfast at St. Mary's Dining Hall on Christmas Eve. And we'll absolutely be thinking of you.
He's saying, I'll be right there with you, Mom.
I know. Don't make me cry.
Okay. Then I love you.
Love you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.